Trigger warning. Ghosts, ghouls, and gruesome stuff ahead. It's weird. It's dark. It's your kind of vibe. Welcome to Haunted and Homicidal, the podcast where true crime meets the paranormal. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Courtney. Every week we uncover the terrifying, the twisted, and the totally unexplainable. Lock your doors and grab your sage.
Because things are about to get haunted and homicidal.
Yeah,
I don't want to do this today for more than one reason. I don't feel good. My voice is fucked up, and it's the end part of David Parker Ray, and I don't have the energy.
We can do it.
I don't want to, because I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling it today. I don't feel good. I guess we will
get the going.
I don't want to, but let's check out HauntFest first, okay? Hey guys,
What's up?
we are going to talk to you about something called HauntFest. Super excited. We are partnering with them
What?
for all of their little events. So HauntFest is crawling back from the darkness, bringing more mayhem, monsters, and madness each year.
Step through the gates and into a fully immersive world of horror art, live music, spooky vendors, themed entertainment, and eerie activities lurking around every corner. Depending on the event, you may find axe throwing, trivia, animal encounters, rage rooms.
Ooh.
I need to do a rage room. Photo ops, food and drink, ghost stories, freak shows, hay rides, haunted attractions, and more. Some locations even feature camping, after-hour parties, and other exclusive surprises.
Our characters, awesome name by the way, that is so cute.
I know, right?
Roam the grounds hunting for fresh screams. If you're easily spooked, grab a Ghoul Gone Glow bracelet at the gate to help keep the beasts at bay. Which is cute. You know, people have like autism and stuff, and their kids are scared. I love that they do stuff like that.
My old roommate wanted one for when we went to Terror on the Coast.
Nice. So yeah, HauntFest, they're taking everybody into consideration. Pre-sale tickets start at a killer price. For the full nightmare experience, upgrade to the RIP Pass for exclusive perks. Season passes are now also available, granting access to any HauntFest event throughout the whole entire year.
Whether you're a thrill seeker, a horror fanatic, an Addams family, or simply dead inside,
That's me.
like Lauren, HauntFest is where Halloween never dies.
This is my jam.
Slip on your monster skins and join us for a weekend of scares, screams, and unforgettable memories.
Join HauntFest at the 2026 premiere of Death March at Trim Tab Brewing Company in Birmingham, Alabama. The thrills begin at 2 p.m. on March 7th and 8th, with the event ending at midnight on Saturday and 8 p.m. on Sunday.
And then HauntFest is back for its 4th annual Athens, Georgia event, April Ghouls, at Terrapin Beer Company on April 11th and 12th, 2026 at 2 p.m. Throw on a costume and boogie at our new Dead Man's Party from 10 p.m. to midnight on Saturday.
I'm loving all these names.
I know, right?
HauntFest returns to historic Hopkins Farm in Simpsonville, South Carolina for a September to Dismember on September 25th and 26th from 5 p.m. to midnight on Friday and 2 p.m. to midnight on Saturday. Hopkins Haunted Attraction will feature a sneak peek walkthrough haunt for the event, which will open at 7:30 p.m. each night and is included in your festival entry ticket. A September to Dismember will be a full-fledged weekend festival with vendors, live music, themed entertainment, and much more. Prepare for a dead man's party.
This November, join us for some post-Halloween thrills at the premiere of HauntFest Harvest of Horrors at Bobby Brown Park in Elberton, Georgia. The magic begins at 5 p.m. on the 6th and 2 p.m. on the 7th, continuing until the clock strikes midnight. Camping, yurts, movie screenings, bouncy houses, and more are offered at this venue. If you're a raging psychopath,
I am.
sign up to sleep in our Night Terrors camping area where our ghouls can creep around your tent after hours until 2 a.m. on Sunday morning.
That sounds so fun, guys.
To take a first look at the venue, come to our free On the Water Sink or Swim horror movie promo event on July 25th. For more information, to get involved, or to buy tickets, visit hauntfest.net.
Guys, do it. Okay, love you. Bye.
Do it.
I still want to go so bad.
Yes.
One day.
One.
Uno Deo. Butthole. That's all I'm hearing right now. I don't know.
Quit looking at his butthole. He's self-conscious. Whose butthole?
I don't know.
Is Kane self-conscious about his butthole?
I have no idea whose butthole they're talking about. I try not to get involved. Okay. So, I guess we'll just go ahead and get into it because I don't want to, but we need to. So, last episode of David Parker Ray, we talked about what was found inside of the toy box. We found out kind of what he was using those items for. We found out about some of the victims. We found out about what his daughter did. We found out that he had an accomplice. So now we're going to find out kind of about the...
And then Cynthia escaped, and she got to the...
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the police response and kind of like just the aftermath of all the horrible things that happened. So after Cynthia Vigil escaped in March of 1999, she reached a nearby home and asked the occupants to call the police. So forgive my voice, guys. I'm sick.
That's 2 months before my brother was born.
Oh, God.
Because he was May in 1999.
Yeah, and forgive my voice. I'm sick again / still. I don't know anymore.
All those stress.
It's stress. My kids were also sick. Like, all of them were sick again at the beginning of
And then Wayne
last
coming
week.
home from different states bringing you shit. He's bringing the germs.
He might be, but he doesn't get sick often, so... Oh, it's doing its thing again. Okay, well, whatever. So when the officers arrived, Vigil told them that she had been kidnapped, chained, tortured, and sexually assaulted. And they found that she was wearing a metal dog collar around her neck and a chain attached to the collar. So, like, before we talked about how he would literally chain these women up so they could not move from the position he wanted them in. So she was still wearing this. So, the police quickly located the property belonging to David Parker Ray. They detained Ray and Cindy Hendy, and then they began searching the property. And they are going to discover everything. No. At first, the officers believed they were investigating a severe kidnapping and sexual assault case, like just thinking it was her.
Yeah.
Just her. They had no idea what they were walking into, that there were many more victims, only a couple that they could identify, but, Parker Ray himself said, David Parker Ray himself said it was like upwards of like 40s or more. Yeah. So once the search began, the investigators did realize they were looking at something much larger and much more disturbing than just this one incident. It wasn't just like an isolated incident. It was they were in for it. Let's just say that. So when the police located the trailer known as the toy box, they found, again, chains, shackles, restraints, surgical tools, syringes, electrical devices. Remember from last time, like I said, keep it in your head that he was a mechanical / electrical engineer in the military. So he put that to, I'm not going to say good use because this is nothing good about this. No. But he put it to use.
Not in a good way.
No. They also found sex toys, ropes, whips, clamps, like nipple clamps and things like that. Spreader bars, bondage furniture, a gynecological examination chair that seemed to have been homemade.
Huh?
Yeah. It was like, it was homemade.
Like
So
he made his own.
I don't know, like, if he took, like, just a regular gynecological chair and, like,
Amped it.
gussied it up.
Yeah.
Or if he just built one, like, from the ground up to suit his needs. It really doesn't get into it. It just does, and some sources say it's a homemade gynecological chair, which leads me to believe that he either did something to it to make it not that, or just built one himself.
Yeah.
They also found the videotapes, the auto recording that we played a little bit of last time, which when I was editing it, my skin was fucking crawling. I was getting nauseous. It's like, again, and if you guys decide that you want to go find that, we are not being held liable or responsible. You are hopefully grown.
Young for that one.
Don't do it. But I know a lot of people are like me and morbidly curious, and we're going to do it anyway. Be warned. Just be very warned, because I heard this man's voice in my head for probably a straight week. And the whole tape gets worse than what we played, and he keeps that same fucking tone through the whole thing. It is... Anyway... the police also found journals, photographs, and personal belongings likely belonging to victims. So he pretty much told on himself. He gave them all the evidence that they were ever going to need.
Pretty much.
And the scene was so fucking disturbing that the investigators doing the case later described it as one of the absolute worst scenes they ever encountered.
I can believe it.
And you just have to remember, these people have seen death.
Yeah.
Mutilations, murders. There were no bodies in this trailer.
Yeah.
It was just the equipment, the photographs, the notes, the audio tapes, the video recordings, and that is the fucking worst thing that they've ever seen. And my stomach is turning, and I already don't feel good today. So, again, the evidence, he pretty much collected it for them and just, here you go, didn't hand it to him himself, but he pretty much did, because he left it where they could find it.
And then he can't be like, oh, that's not mine. Bitch, it's in your backyard.
Oh, no, he was very proud of all of this.
Oh, shit.
Very proud.
Oh, shit.
In a lot of the interviews that I watched, he was happy and smiling and giggling when he was retelling everything.
What
he was
the
so
hell?
happy. Yeah, I don't know. He's real fucked up in the head.
Clearly.
Yeah. So the investigators discovered large amounts of evidence that suggested Ray had been operating for years. Years and years. Again, the items included videotapes showing the assault. So he recorded himself and Cindy Hindy doing these things to these women. Again, recorded audio messages, written notes, journals documenting the attacks. So anytime he did anything, they wrote it down. Trophies taken from victims, which we know is one of those big serial killer, serial rapist fetish things. And he did keep some of their clothing and their jewelry just as kind of, a trophy to remind himself, remember all the good times he had, all the memories. They said the presence of the videotapes was especially alarming. Not just because of what was on it, but the quantity of videotapes, and just the fact that they were labeled and dated with names and whatever he could put on there. It was the amount of them that was astonishing, not so much. I mean, obviously what was on them, but the number of videotapes of these women being assaulted. And reports indicated investigators found dozens of videotapes, upwards of 100.
Good golly.
In the trailer and in other locations. So he didn't just have them in the trailer, he had them in other places. So it doesn't say if individual women were on these tapes or if it was multiple tapes of particular people. Regardless, it was upwards of 100 videos.
Yeah.
So even if 2 videos apiece, that's 50 women. And he said it was more than 40. Because he did do this over the course of a couple of days, a couple of weeks. So it could be every time of one female or just 1 or 2 tapes. Because the tapes, 8-10 hours long. So it doesn't really specify how many victims were on each tape, you know, if it was like a bundle of tapes, like victim 1 and 2 is on tape 1 or whatever, but it just indicated that this has been going on for a very long time. Even if you thought one person a day, that's 100 days.
Yeah.
If you have 100 tapes.
Yeah.
So it was years. So what these videotapes suggested was that there were repeated attacks, multiple victims, and a system of recording abuse, which again was his thing. He wanted to go back and read it and watch it, listen to it, relive it. So again, even though the tapes were never publicly released, they did become extremely important for identifying the victims. I'm not sure how they used, well, I do. They took still images of the females in the tapes and kind of put them out there. But the tapes themselves were never publicly released. So understanding David Parker Ray requires examining his psychological traits. I don't ever want to understand him, but this is kind of why I did get into...
He was fucked up in the head.
This is kind of why I did get into criminal psychology, because even though this is, like, fucking horrible, I want to know, like, what made him tick. What made him... What made this? Because his sister, with the exception of the pornographic material, had the same upbringing.
Yeah.
Dad was still violent. Mom still wasn't there. Grandparents were overbearing and physically abusive. What is it that made him go down this path psychologically that she didn't?
Mm-hmm.
Or other people who have had the same or similar upbringing, you know, with the pornographic material. What is it that triggered them to not become rapists or killers?
And then him over here,
but him over here doing what
shit.
Exactly. So the psyche absolutely fascinates me, because again, there are probably hundreds of thousands of people who grew up in similar or worse conditions that didn't turn around and do what he did. You know, and we've talked about that before. Like with Brutos, or who else have we covered? We covered a lot of people.
Brutos. Manson.
Yeah, I mean,
my eyeball's twitching.
Yeah, I mean, not just like the
Who
big...
was my first?
Ridgway, yeah.
Yeah, Ridgway.
Not just like the big name killers either. The little ones, like fucking bitch boy Brian Pennell.
Yeah.
Or Otis Toole, you know, like...
Yeah.
There were people who grew up worse than these people have. And, I mean, when we get to Bundy, he specifically states that his upbringing was great. There were no problems. There were no problems. His parents... Well, so... Some people think it's just because he wanted the attention solely on himself. So he was like, yeah, my upbringing was great. No problems, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there were issues in the family, but, I mean, they were just, like, normal, most of the time, issues. Yeah. But, again, he started looking at pornography when he was 12.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people, that's kind of their starting point is pornography, which is why there's such this big thing about trying to just like abolish pornography entirely, because it can and does become a problem. And I think at 12, or in his case, David Parker Ray at 8, it does shape the brain negatively. But I feel like consenting adults should be able to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. So, his crimes suggest a combination of several dangerous personality characteristics, such as sexual sadism, narcissism, big fucking time, antisocial behavior, and an extreme need for control. I'm a control freak, okay? My daughter is a control freak. Yes. But I manage it. Okay, I'm not out there abusing people and trying to control. I try to control, like... My life is so fucking out of control. I don't even try anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's like when I do try, the only thing that I can control, dinner. I can control dinner. Sometimes I make you see my menu. I make my menu every fucking week. And some days I'm like, yeah, I don't want that. So I don't even control it. I'm like, eat ramen or make a sandwich.
Yeah.
I try. Look, I try. I try so hard.
Why's my boober?
I don't know. Mischa sliced my leg up yesterday. was that? Is she snoring?
I mean, she's asleep.
She snores. I had to go to the vet and get her like the vet flea meds.
Really?
Yeah, because the other ones from the feed store were just they work for like 2 days and then.
So, I mean, yeah, she's not itching.
She itches occasionally. I think she's feeling better because she was real playful with Sam this morning. And when I say playful, I mean she was trying to eat him. She had his whole head in her mouth.
Poor Sam.
Yeah, he just.
She was all excited at the door when I brought her toy.
I was like, because I got her excited. I was like, Chutney's here, is Chutney. So I think like if maybe I tell her, and he just like sits there and takes
And
it.
he just lets her.
He just wait, like near the end, she like puts his whole head in her mouth.
Dang.
So now we're gonna kind of touch on like what each of these things mean.
Yeah.
That they are like, this is what he has. So we're gonna kind of like touch on what they mean and like why they're saying that, like identifies and characterizes him.
Okay.
So Ray's crimes strongly indicate sexual sadism disorder. And sexual sadism involves sexual arousal from inflicting pain, humiliation, domination, or fear. So like the top 3 are like BDSM.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And again, we are not kink shaming. I made a whole speech about that last episode. Not kink shaming. The biggest thing about BDSM is consent. And the BDSM community is strong, heavy on consent. Big time.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like if fear kind of ruminates in the BDSM community. I think like play fear, because I know like some people have like rape fantasies or whatever, but like they know they're safe.
Yeah.
So it's not like real fear.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows, you can let me know, because I'm not in that community. I respect it. I'm just not a part of it. So I have a pair of handcuffs. That's about as far as it goes. And they've never been used. I've had them for years, and they're just
sitting there.
They're just in the little bag they came in. Ray's behavior demonstrates all of these elements, like the prolonged torture, forced observation through mirrors, like where he had these strategic mirrors placed, so they had to kind of watch him do what he was doing to them. Psychological intimidation through the recordings, like obviously at the very beginning, you know, that he's laying out for them exactly what he's going to be doing, and just like the anticipation, the terror that this is what this man said he's going to do, and now he's doing it. Like, what's going to come next? Yeah. And then the elaborate restraint systems, all part of his, you know, sadistic need for control. The combination of physical and psychological torment suggests that Ray derived gratification not just from the sexual assault, but from the actual victim's suffering itself. Because his main goal was to hurt them. Yeah. Not just molest or rape them. It was to actually cause intense pain. And that is kind of what he grew on. So his need for absolute control. Every aspect of the toy box reinforced his authority. So he controlled their movement, their speech, their physical position, their access to food and water, and their exposure to pain. Everything he did was elaborate. Everything he did was premeditated. And even the audio tape at the beginning reinforced this dynamic. Victims were told that their reality was now defined by Ray, and there was nothing they could do about it. Yeah. That was it. His actions also suggested significant narcissistic traits.
She has to be touching my foot.
Mischa. These include belief in personal superiority. So he believed he was better than pretty much everybody, but specifically better than women, and even more specifically better than the women he captured.
Of course.
He felt entitled to dominate others. He did have a severe lack of empathy, and he had a very high need for admiration or control, like for them to look at him like a god. You know? And he was the last fucking man on this goddamn earth that deserved it. Yes. The last fucking one.
Did you really write Courtney is stuttering not bad?
Real bad.
Oh.
Struggling. That's like when you were like melting in your chair.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, I just like whatever I'm hearing, I write it down. So
Yeah.
when I do like the pod description, I kind of can include that in there. Yeah. So the tape itself demonstrates his narcissistic personality. He casts himself as a central authority figure in the victim's world because he's like, it's me.
Yeah.
I'm controlling you. Sometimes Cindy, but mostly me. And there's nothing you can do about it. So Ray also demonstrated behaviors consistent with antisocial personality disorder, which we kind of knew that from an early age.
Yeah.
Those traits include lack of remorse, which he did not give a flying fuck about these victims or what he was doing.
Especially since you said he was laughing and giggling.
In his interviews, yeah, manipulation, deception, and disregard for others' rights. Ray showed no concern for the suffering he caused. Instead, he appeared to view victims as tools for his own gratification. Again, I mentioned before that he did not view these women as women. They were just toys. They were just things that he could play with and do whatever he wanted to do.
He called it a toy box, pretty much?
Because he was playing with them.
Okay.
So another notable element of Ray's crimes was like rituals. He operated in the same way, kind of like each time, like for the kidnappings as well as like what he was doing to them. It seems to have been highly structured. So his typical pattern was abduction, sedation. Sometimes those were switched, because he didn't always like abduct them. Like the girl was led to his house. At that point, he sedated her. So 1 and 2 were kind of like flipped sometimes, but most of the time it followed. They took her, they sedated her, they restrained her to the gynecological chair. The victim was waking up, the tape was already playing, and then Ray would come into the room when the tape was over. This pattern indicates repetition and planning, and that was like the biggest thing they had to say about this. This was not random. This wasn't random. What? I don't got no bites. I don't got none.
She says somebody, but I have some damn bites up a hill.
I got no bites. I got no bites, baby.
Where's her bag of vegetables?
We ate them.
Oh. Hi, Mish.
She's sniffing everything looking for a treat.
She really is. Like, I put my hand in my pocket and she thought I had something in there in my pocket.
Mish. Honey baby.
Just lay down, Bubba.
She's like, oh yeah, scratch my butt.
Booty scratch. Booty scratch.
And so like they kind of define this as a ritual because it happened.
Like, why'd you stop?
Because it happened every time. Like there was no deviation. This is what he did. This was every single time. And how do they know this? Because he recorded it.
She's like, don't stop.
So needy. And so this likely reinforced Ray's psychological satisfaction because he was able to control the narrative every single time. Ray's crimes appear to have evolved from a long-standing fantasy. Again, you know, from when he was young, he had these sadomasochistic pornography magazines that his dad would bring him at the age of 8.
The fact that his dad brought him at that freaking 8.
Yeah. They were reinforced through pornography, obviously. The drawings that he did, planning of what he was going to do, and equipment collection. So he was collecting and planning out this toy box long before he put it to use.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, tens of thousands up to $100,000 creating this toy box. And
I wonder if anyone asked him, like, when he would buy the supplies, oh, what are you buying this for?
I mean, maybe. Or maybe people just minded their own business. I don't know. Like, I don't know, like, if he got these in town, if he, like, ordered them out of a catalog, or, like, it doesn't ever really kind of say how he got his hands on all these things, especially the gynecological chair, if he didn't build that from the ground up.
Yeah.
You know. And over time, his fantasies turned into reality, obviously, or we would not be here discussing him today. And the toy box allowed Ray to act out these fantasies repeatedly. Every day. For years. Ray showed extreme emotional detachment. He appeared able to compartmentalize his life, maintain employment, have relationships, and hide his crimes. So while all this was happening at nighttime, he was still getting up and showing up to his job every day. He was still interacting with his family, his neighbors, his few friends that he had. He was able to do this every fucking day and then come home
And then do the shit he did.
and do all of this. And on top of that, knowing that he wasn't killing these women that we know of, because some are still not identified, wasn't killing these women. He was confident enough that he thought he wasn't going to get caught because they weren't going to remember anything. And most of them didn't.
Yeah.
That's scary as shit. So at its core, Ray's crimes were about power. Sexual assault was part of the behavior, but domination appears to have been more of the true motivation, because he created an environment where he controlled every single variable. Victims had no autonomy, and the fear was absolutely constant because they did not know what was coming next. They listened to the audio. They knew things were coming, but in what order?
Yeah.
Were they going to get their toenails pulled out? Were they going to get their teeth ripped out of their head? You know, I mean, he had a lot of items that varied in sizes, you know, and sometimes he didn't start out small.
Yeah.
Sometimes he grabbed the largest one, you know, and they just were in constant fear of what was coming next, and they knew something was coming. The absolute control likely satisfied the psychological needs that drove his behavior until it didn't. Because if it satisfied them, then he would have stopped.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have continued on collecting these women. So David Parker Ray represents one of the most extreme examples of organized sexual sadism in American criminal history, with the elaborate preparation, psychological manipulation, prolonged activity, and ritual violence. You know, there have been others who have I'm not going to say done similar things because they haven't, but other serial rapists, they also have like a pattern that they follow, right?
Yeah.
This man just did it differently. The toy box is not just a torture chamber. It was the literal physical expression of Ray's inner world. His brain, his psyche. It was literally, it's like someone reached in his brain, grabbed it with their fist, threw it, and popped up the toy box. So, investigators also found written material that appeared to document Ray's activities. These writings suggest that the crimes may have been ongoing for years and years. And there were far more victims than initially believed. Because remember, when they went in, Cynthia was the only one that they were kind of on the know about. Then they found more tapes. They found more audio. They found more clothing, more jewelry. And it just compounded and compounded and compounded. And so they were like, shit.
Yeah.
There's more than like 5 or 6 girls that this happened to. This has been going on for years. There's probably 40 or so. And some of his writings allegedly, like I said, referenced dozens of assaults. So, like, even if there wasn't, like, video evidence of these things, there was journal evidence.
Yeah.
Like, he wrote about them, even though, like, maybe it didn't match up to a video.
Yeah.
So, it was like the videos had the women, but the writing seemed to have more women. Once the scale of the evidence became clear, the investigation expanded. Agencies involved included the local police, the New Mexico State Police, and the FBI. So, it was, like, built upon. Those investigators began examining missing persons cases just in case, like, maybe he did murder them. His past relationships, like we've talked about, he was married allegedly 3 or 4 times. I can't find any information about any of these women. Obviously, Jesse has a mother, but there's, like, no information about any of that. There is no concrete proof that he did have another daughter, even though it is said that he did.
They all said, we don't know this fucking
these
man.
people,
we're not claiming him.
Yeah, these people, if he had these past relationships, have done their due diligence to stay hidden.
I wouldn't be related to this dude.
No, I would not either. They were also kind of looking at people who he had contact with, like his work partners or just anybody in general, like store clerks, you know, like back in the 1990s.
Yeah.
You didn't have like social media like you do now. So you'd print out a picture. Do you recognize this guy? Like Terminator, okay?
Yeah.
Do you know this man? And they could be like, yeah, no. And like your interactions with him, how were they normal? Like, did anything kind of stick out? Do you recall anything? Did he buy the ropes and chains from here?
Yeah.
So they just kind of were doing what they could do. They had the suspect. Now they were trying to identify the victims.
Yeah.
And so they were also kind of like looking at the items that they had removed from the trailer, trying to put those out in news channels or whatever. Does anybody recognize this shirt? Is anybody missing this bracelet, this necklace, these shoes? Like, does anybody recognize these? Some people came forward, some people didn't. The exact number of victims still to this day remains unknown. Some are still not solved. However, several figures have been discussed by investigators. Possible estimates include 15 confirmed or strongly suspected victims. We know of like 4 with absolute certainty. Cynthia, the girl that Jesse brought, the one that was murdered, and then one more. I can't remember her name. Tara, maybe? I don't remember. I don't want to read back through everything because fuck that. Ray is claiming around 40 victims, but his writings reference up to 60 assaults. So the number ideally is between 14 and 60. 14 have been confirmed. Yeah. So like he's saying, no, it's 40, but like the writings, the evidence is more closer to 60. These numbers are not definitive. The only victims fully confirmed publicly are those who survived and came forward. So they don't know. They don't know if anybody was murdered other than the one lady. Yeah. Because they can't identify the victim. So they don't know. Like, and nobody has come forward. Over the years, investigators conducted multiple searches around Ray's property. So around Elephant Butte, the lake in Elephant Butte, the desert. That's why I closed my eyes, because that's not right. The desert terrain, in the area and the nearby canyons. And if you remember, he specifically chose this place because it was off the beaten path. Yeah. And he reinforced the walls to where if anybody heard anybody, like, they couldn't hear him scream. Yeah. And even if they could, this was such an isolated area that nobody would hear it. Nobody. So they did look like in canyons and stuff to see if like bodies had been disposed of there. Again, concerned that he had disposed bodies there. Yeah. Ray's prosecution was complicated. The cases involving different victims were separated rather than tried together. And prosecutors argued that this weakened their case. Ray's first trial was related to Kelly Garrett. The result was a mistrial.
The fuck?
The jury could not reach a unanimous verdict.
The fuck?
Now, Kelly Garrett, I believe, is the one that Jesse lured to his home, her friend Kelly. Yeah. So there was a retrial. And during the retrial, he was convicted. And the conviction strengthened the case against him. So that first trial was a bust. They retried him. Yeah. And he was convicted. While the Cynthia Vigil trial was underway, Ray accepted a plea deal. Some reports say this decision was influenced by his desire to protect his daughter, Jessie, because she was part of it. Mm-hmm. In 2001, Ray received a sentence totaling 224 years in prison. The convictions included kidnapping, sexual assault, and torture. But because they couldn't find any bodies, he was never convicted of murder. And again, they don't know, outside of that one woman, that anybody was killed. Yeah. It does stand to reason that there were possibly dead bodies because there are so many victims unnamed, unmatched. Nobody knows who they are. Yeah. So it's entirely possible. And again, he did take wanderers, sex workers, runaways, people who just wouldn't be really missed, unfortunately. Yeah. So Cindy Hendy only received a 36-year sentence.
The fuck? This bitch.
She later cooperated partially with investigators. However, her cooperation was inconsistent. And she reportedly later recanted some of her earlier statements.
Bitch.
So, Now, just 1 year into his sentence, on May 28th of 2002, David Parker Ray died. 1 year into his sentence, he had a heart attack and he died. He died in prison before revealing further information about possible victims, of course. So, like, you know, when they're in jail for 15, 20 years, sometimes they start talking, right? They talk to their cellmates. They talk to their bunkies. They talk to other people in different blocks. They talk to security. He was not alive long enough to do that. And that's unfortunate because a lot of the time when they are in prison, the longer they're there, they do start kind of revealing more information. So Ray's death closed off many investigative possibilities. Like, you know, he may have eventually told them, yeah, I did kill some people. This is where they're buried. Yeah, I know who that is, even if I didn't write their name down.
Yeah.
You know, or any other crimes that he may have committed prior to all of this going down, right? So with his death, those answers will probably never be known. Unless Cindy Hendy decides to fucking grab herself by the bootstraps and lace those bitches up and tell people the truth, like what happened. She's the only one that would really know because she participated.
Yeah. But she's probably not going to.
No, she's probably not going to. The toy box is not simply a location. It represented Ray's fantasies and how he made them physical, years of preparation and a controlled environment for abuse. And the trailer allowed him to create a private world where he and only he held the power. So despite the evidence uncovered, there are many questions that remained, like how many victims were there? Were any victims killed? Are there any unidentified survivors? Could additional victims be identified through the FBI evidence? We may never know.
Yeah.
One of the most haunting aspects of the David Parker Ray case is the strong possibility that many victims were never identified. Although Ray was convicted of crimes against a small number of women, they're saying 14 have been confirmed, but I think really like the true confirmed one was like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Investigators repeatedly stated that the evidence suggested the true number of victims was much higher. Much higher. This belief is based on several pieces of evidence recovered during the trial investigation, like, again, the writings in the journals, the videotapes, the personal items that they collected, accomplice statements, which would be Cindy Hendy, but then she recanted, you know, so we don't fucking know what she's telling anybody is the truth or not. And then a lot of missing persons cases linked to the area. You know, if a person was reported missing, just say in 1997, 1995, at 15, they're going to look different in 1998 or 1999 when he had them. You know, so they might not be able to identify the picture given as a missing person to the video. Among some of the items recovered were, again, the written materials believed to document Ray's activities. In this journal, he included notes about the people, notes about the experiment, the lists of what he wanted to do, what he wanted to use, the journal logs of how he felt about the situation, and then just the logs of what he actually did use on the people. And according to investigators, some of these writings referenced numerous assaults, not just on one person, but on many. In certain cases, Ray allegedly described victims without using their names, so sometimes he didn't know who the fuck they were.
Yeah, he doesn't really care.
Or he just didn't document it.
And it's like, he doesn't care about their names.
He doesn't give a shit. They're not people. They're not people. Instead, he sometimes referred to them using physical descriptions, locations where they were taken, and approximate dates. So it might be like Elephant Butt, Jacob's Bar, March 3rd, 1997.
Yeah.
Instead of, I'm just going to pick a name, Nicole.
Yeah.
Or Jessica. It's me, Jessica. So that also made it very, very hard to identify specific victims. However, the existence of these notes suggested that Ray had assaulted many more women than publicly identified and kept record of those assaults, which in and of itself is fucking psychotic.
Yes.
But again, this is how he is reliving. He could flip through that journal, remember this, remember that, and he's going to remember what they looked like. He's not going to give a shit about the name, but he's going to remember what they looked like and what he did, because that's all it was about.
Yeah.
In some of his writings and statements, Ray allegedly claimed he had assaulted or abducted approximately 40 women. Again, that number cannot be confirmed, but it is believed to be between 40 and 60. Investigators took it seriously because the evidence in the trailer suggested repeated activity. There are videotapes indicating many, many, many victims. And again, the accomplice described multiple assaults. So Cindy Hindi was like, yeah, there were like 30 women, you know. But then again, fucking bitch recanted. So like, what can you believe? I believe there were many, many women. Even if Ray exaggerated, the available evidence indicates that the victim count was likely much higher than the number of known survivors. So, unfortunately. One of the most striking developments in the case occurred years later. The FBI publicly released photographs of 401 items recovered from Ray's property. That's a lot. 401. Rings, necklaces, bracelets, watches, clothing, accessories. So, again, you know, one female could have like 10 of those things on her. She could be wearing 2 necklaces, 2 rings, shirt, bra, underwear, pants, shoes, socks, you know, so.
Yeah.
But if each woman is wearing 10 things, that's still 40 victims. Yeah. You know, or more, because, you know, he didn't, when he released them, you know, he didn't always keep everything. Mm-hmm. Some of the women were released clothed, you know. Not their clothes sometimes, but they were released. Cynthia broke free. She was naked. Yeah. She had nothing. So some of those items, you know, were hers. But just withstanding, if a woman is wearing all of these things and he kept everything, that's at least 40 victims. Mm-hmm. At least. And the investigators believed, obviously, that these items belonged to the victims, not like he went to the pawn store and bought them, or just like went shopping at Macy's and grabbed what he could grab. It's like, he didn't buy this shit. He took this from the victim. Yeah. The FBI released the images of these items in hopes that family members of missing women might recognize them. Like, I bought that for my sister. Or, hey, that looks like my sister's favorite fucking shirt that she wears weekly. Or unidentified victims could be linked to Ray, who, you know, again, he used sedatives and mind-altering substances while he was performing these activities. A lot of these women may not remember. Mm-hmm. And then if they see something that belonged to them, it may jog their memory, or how did he get a hold of that? Mm-hmm. You know, and they would be like, well, that's mine. Yeah. I don't know how he got it, but let me go to the FBI and claim it anyway. And then they could be like, hey, we think you might be a potential victim. Yeah. That's kind of what they were hoping was going to happen. You know, and obviously they did this in hopes that additional cases could be solved. Yeah. Not that it would make a difference because he had already been convicted and probably at this point dead. But as closure for the family or the victim involved, you know, and I think that's one of like the big things that the law enforcement officials should focus on, is even if a perpetrator is convicted of what you can currently prove, if there is so much more, I feel like they should focus on solving that too. Yeah. Like, we know who did it. We just need to find out who this is. Yeah. But moreover, it was really unusual for the FBI to do something like this. Yeah. But it did demonstrate how strongly the investigators believed that they were unidentified victims, and they were wanting to get this solved, like, completely. Yeah. So again, of these 401 items that they found on Ray's property, a lot of them may have served as trophies, which, again, we know that serial rapists and serial killers tend to take trophies to remember their crimes. So again, they collect items from the victim to relive the crimes, reinforce their fantasies, and maintain a sense of control over victims. Because if you see this person in the wild, okay, just in the wild, and you have their shirt, you have their necklace, their shoes, and you're intentionally trying to cause them harm, all you have to do is pull that item out and they're going to remember. Yeah. And just that fear of what happens or what's going to happen. He was like, yeah. Ugh. God, I hate this man so fucking much, you guys. Like, goose blah blah. Goose blah blah. Goose blah blah. So, the presence of hundreds of personal items strongly suggested that Ray had contact with far more women than the known victims. And that was just a point they were trying to drive home. Like, it's obvious at this point.
Yeah.
So, after Ray's arrest, investigators began reviewing missing persons cases that might have been connected to him. They focused on the disappearances involving, obviously, women, individuals traveling alone, and people who had been seen in that region of New Mexico in Elephant Butt or Truth and Consequences. Some of the cases included women who disappeared near Albuquerque, again, Truth or Consequences, and Elephant Butt. And I know it's Butte, but it's just funnier when I say Elephant Butt. However, linking specific missing persons cases to Ray proved very, very difficult without physical evidence or like confirmation of this victim. One of the most notable missing persons cases connected to David Parker Ray is Jill Suzanne Troya. Troya disappeared from Albuquerque in 1995. Years after Ray's conviction, investigators reopened searches connected to her disappearance. In 2011, the FBI conducted new searches in the area near Elephant Butt. Authorities publicly stated Ray was suspected of involvement in Troya's disappearance. However, despite these efforts, she's never been found alive or her body has never been found. So investigators also examined the possibility that Ray may have disposed of victims in the lake near his home. Like, remember earlier, we talked about the investigators, like, pinpointing the lake and canyons and just the desert terrain and kind of looking for it. So now we're kind of going to get, like, more into why they think these areas were a possibility. Elephant Butt Lake is large and deep, and it was very, very, very close to where his house was or his trailer. So if bodies had been placed there, they may have been extremely difficult to recover just because of how large and deep the lake is. Think like Nessie kind of situation. It's so big, like, and so deep, and there are canyons and caverns, and it's just not possible to search everything. Especially for a body that's possibly years decomped, searches of the area did not produce confirmed remains linked to Ray. However, the lake remains one of the locations that investigators still consider a possible disposal site. And again, because it is so big, eventually bodies may surface. We're very far into when this had happened. 1999 was when he was arrested, and it's 2026. So I don't think they're going to find anything if they haven't yet. And the desert terrain surrounding the home was very challenging for the investigators because it was a remote desert area, just fucking nothing. But rocky terrain, canyons, and abandoned roads. So much area to cover. They just couldn't do it. But the conditions, of it being so out there and spacious they were perfect places to hide bodies for long periods of time, and then the elements could get to them, and so they were like, even extensive searches might not locate remains if they had been buried or scattered. So they're not saying he didn't murder people. They're just saying, like, if he did, he did a real good job hiding them. Like, we can't find anything. Statements from Ray's accomplices, Cindy Hendy, mainly, also fueled suspicion about additional victims. For example, Cindy Hendy initially told investigators that Ray had murdered multiple women. With a fucking sadistic mind like that, I fucking believe it. Just like I believe Palm Beach Pete is goddamn Jeffrey Epstein.
Huh?
You haven't heard about that?
No.
There was a video posted of a guy driving a Corvette in Palm Beach, Florida that looked just like goddamn Jeffrey Epstein. It somehow got to this man, and he was like, I'm not Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein's dead. I'm alive. My name's Palm Beach Pete. That's fucking Jeffrey Epstein.
For one, who names himself Palm Beach Pete?
That's fucking Jeffrey Epstein, because someone took like a screenshot of like when Jeffrey Epstein was talking and then when this guy was addressing the TikTok community or whatever, and focused in on the teeth, and they are the exact same. I believe it. So I believe that this man killed people. Okay? I fucking believe it. But again, this fucking bitch later recanted or changed parts of her story.
Of course.
Right. This inconsistency made it difficult for prosecutors to pursue murder charges, mainly because they didn't know who was murdered.
Yeah.
They didn't know who was still alive, who just didn't remember, who didn't want to come forward. They didn't know anything.
Yeah.
But her statement still contributed to the investigators' belief that the known cases might only represent a fraction of the real truth. I believe he killed people. I truly, in my heart, in my soul, I believe he killed people, because there's no way he couldn't have.
Either that or they died from like heart attack from the trauma.
But he still killed them.
Yeah.
Like, he may not have physically plunged a dagger into their heart or sliced their throat, but what he did to them, if that caused a heart attack, he killed them. Period. Another possibility investigators considered is that may have released many victims alive. They were likely heavily drugged, obviously traumatized and disoriented, and they may have only had fragmented memories of the events because he gave them those type of drugs.
Yeah.
Some victims might never realize the full extent of what happened to them, or even think it was a dream.
Yeah.
It was a dream. That couldn't have happened to me. Others may have chosen not to report the assault due to fear, shame, lack of evidence for them to be believed, or mistrust of the authorities.
Yeah.
And that could possibly explain why more victims were not identified. I understand that, but when he died in 2002, the fear should have been gone at that point. And I would hope that someone other than the 4 or 5 that were confirmed, or 14, came forward. And, or I hope they just compartmentalize it and never think of it again, and they have wonderful, happy lives right now.
Yeah.
And again, one of the greatest difficulties in the case was that the investigators had a shit ton of evidence with no identity of who all this shit belonged to. They had the evidence that it's somebody's, but they could never point who it was, who it belonged to. So even after Ray's death, the case continues to trouble investigators and criminal researchers. And this is because the sheer scale of the evidence. There was so much evidence. The shocking number of victims, and it's not like Otis Toole and his little buddy. I can't remember what his name is. Oh, we killed 276 people.
No, you didn't, bitches.
Like, there's evidence of 4.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, they claimed this many only had a little bit of evidence. There's a shit ton of evidence that proves that there were this many. They just can't identify anybody.
Yeah.
And again, they do believe that he murdered people, but there were no bodies that they found that tied back to him. Like, they probably found bodies, but they were not of anybody that, they could connect to him. And of course, there's hundreds of unanswered questions. And the full extent of his crimes, like, literally may never be known. Ever. And, David Parker Ray is disturbing not only because of the cruelty involved, but because of the unanswered questions that remain. Again, he was convicted as a kidnapper, a torturer, and a sexual predator. But the investigators suspected the scope of his crimes may have been far greater, up to and including murder and disposing of a body. The toy box trailer represented years of planning and preparation. The tape he recorded shows how carefully he orchestrated psychological control. So he obviously was not a stupid man. He did this, like, knowing full well what it was going to do to people. And the hundreds of unidentified items recovered from his property suggest a possibility that victims still remain unknown. Upwards of like 40 to 60. The case ultimately reminds us that the courage of the survivors is often what exposes hidden predators, because if Cynthia Vigil did not escape and make it to where someone was like, oh, fuck, something's happening, let me call the police. If Cindy Hendy had recovered after Cynthia. So some sources say that Cynthia hit Cindy with a lamp.
Mm-hmm.
Some sources say she stabbed her in the back of the head with an ice pick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either way, if Cindy had recovered from either of those two possible attacks and caught her, this man probably would have continued for many, many, many years. Except he got caught and he died in prison because he's a fucking jackass. Mm-hmm. And without the continued work of the investigators and families of missing people, the identities of potential victims may never come to light, despite all of their efforts. You know, we're just probably never going to know the full extent of what he actually did. And this case does remain one of the most disturbing in American criminal history, because it's disgusting and it's fucked and it is horrible. And what these women experienced, like, even in your worst fucking nightmares. Ugh. I don't like it. I don't like it. And this one thankfully wasn't as bad as the first one. And I hope you guys did not go find the transcripts, because they're bad. They're real bad. But thank you for listening. You can find us at patreon.com/haunted and homicidal. You can be alerted when our pods drop, because I'm sick and I'm struggling right now. And so sometimes it's not Monday, Thursday. Sometimes it's Tuesday, Friday.
Sometimes Wednesday.
Sometimes not at all. So, you know, I'm getting there. Okay. I'm really trying. But at least if you subscribe to the Patreon, you're not sitting there waiting on it. When is it going to happen? Yeah. Patreon's going to email you and be like, hey, bitch,
it's up.
It's out. So there's that. If you guys have any suggestions or like listener tales you guys want to submit, or things you want to hear about, you can submit them to gmail.com/haunted and homicidal. And then you can see all the links and stuff that we post and pictures of our stories on Facebook, facebook.com/haunted and homicidal. Do not forget to visit hauntfest.net and check them out. Get you some tickets. Go to the event. Have a good time. Think about us while you're doing it. Not having sex. Don't do that. Just like while you're enjoying HauntFest, okay? Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.